Hello and welcome back to the Middle Earth in Mercia podcast. This is episode 10 of our Mercian short series. And today we're going to be taking you through all the profiles included in the War of the Rohirrim for the Rohan faction. As usual, I am your host, Sonny, and I am joined by my co-host, once again, the wind beneath my wings, Ash.
Hi guys.
Yeah, he's as enthused as ever. I've sort of returned to sanity, and I've also adjusted my camera, so we should be a touch less starey today. I watched those videos back, and I was certainly practicing the Gollum eyes, but it was a good laugh. We have to change it up if we're going to make like literally nearly hundreds of these videos. Then we need to be able to have a laugh now and then. So hopefully you joined in with us. But yeah, let's just absolutely crack on with the premise of this. Those of you who have watched the last two videos will be well aware that we are doing 4 days of leaks. You've heard of the many days of Christmas. This is the 4 days of leaks, and it's a bit more substantial than the vegetable you put into stews. So yeah, we've gone through intelligence and intelligence and the unit classifications. So if we mention them, we're not going to be going through the details today. You have to go back to episode 8 to view that. We've been through Elrond's profile and we've discussed some of the new aspects of the profile. If you want to know, like, you know, the details of how the profiles are laid out now, go back and watch episode 9. We're going to be purely focusing on the new content included in these profiles for the various warriors of Rohan and their heroes. So, Ash, you are our resident Rohan expert. I know you've been looking at the old profiles and things. Like, you know, I know you don't have a massive interest in getting this particular box set at the moment. You want to try and do something new. But are you excited to see what the new warriors of Rohan look like?
No, yeah, I think so. I think I'd be interested to see what they look like compared to my dated force. So yeah, really excited to have the new models and some new heroes to try out, and not the usual stale heroes we've got now. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how the heroes fit in with what I've currently painted, and if you can play the new models with the old models, and there doesn't really look like much of a difference. I'm hoping it's not, they haven't grown in size a bit. They're still sort of to the same sort of scale.
But what about the rules? Are
We'll
you expecting a big change up in the way Warriors of Rohan play? Maybe a bit more viable, because they don't. You know, you mainly ever played them as dismounts, didn't you?
Yeah, so I'm interested to see if we're gonna maybe see a shift and maybe more, I guess, the use of models on foot. I suppose the new box set has only got models on foot, so that'll be interesting to see if we're having that shift, because I can't really think of anywhere it's viable to just use models on foot other than Defenders of Helm's Deep.
Helmsguard, you could sometimes use, see that used as all infantry or majority infantry. But anyway, let's crack on. So first up on the block, we have the new Warrior of Rohan. So you can see how the new profile is going to be displayed. We will sort of caveat, like Ash, I know, mentioned it at the beginning of the last episode. These profiles that we're going to be showing are quite clearly from the booklet, not the main rulebook that comes with the launch box, basically. So we've seen this in a lot. It doesn't include points, and it doesn't include points for options. What they tend to do is you have sort of, you know, 5 scenarios or whatever. Here you go. This lets you play out the Battle of Edoras. This is what you need. So they don't include points. So, you know, mileage may vary. And we could see a slightly different looking profile in the main rulebook, especially relating to points. But in terms of that stat line, I'm expecting it to look exactly the same. So let's crack on through it. Movement 6, exactly as we would expect. Fight value 3. That is the same, but we do need to bear in mind that they're stretching the range that is going to be included into. So that fight 3 is actually worth less this edition than it was last edition. Shoot value 4, that's the same. strength 3, D4. That's standard for a man in armor. Attacks 1, wounds 1, and courage 7, which is the equivalent of the equivalent of having courage 3. But in the new, easier to understand format. And then we have intelligence 6, which is, that means you will fail more than you pass. Is that no? Oh no! It'd be 50-50. It's straight 50-50.
50-50, yeah. And we can't really comment really on how good that is yet because we haven't seen anything. But if you compare it to the Elrond, who's a 3+.
So yeah, we're
a big difference.
We've got some hero profiles to take you through. So like we can see whether they do tend to favour heroes or whether it's going to be a case by case basis. War gear, armour and hand weapon standard. We know that they were removing the options and the differentiations between axes and swords. So arm them as you see fit. It does open up the option for a few conversions there, and you don't have to really worry about how optimum it is. And then a warrior of Rohan must have one of the following options. It is must. It must. So bow or shield and throwing spears. Now, like I say, we need to take that as a pinch of salt because we don't know whether you will have the option to fully customize based on points. But at least for these scenarios, that's what they've got. Now, the biggest change, which I'm sure you've already seen already, special rules, spear mastery. Basically, it is the rule that you've had from many of the legendary legions. If you do not throw your throwing spear in the shooting phase, or when you go into hasn't made a shooting attack with either the preceding move or shoot phase. So if you don't throw it when you charge in, and you don't throw it in the shooting phase, then you are able to use your spear as a normal spear. I think that's something they've needed for a long time. I've sort of given the lowdown. Ash, you're the Rohan player. What do you think on all this?
Yeah, I think that special rule is going to be a big change because a lot of the time you're spending points on getting those spears, and then you can only use them for throwing spears, which I guess can be lethal, but also can sometimes feel like a bit of a waste. So being able to use it in a way that I guess it just makes logical sense that someone with a spear can spear support whether they throw it or not. I guess our point yesterday as well with the special rules, could this not have been included as a special rule that is, I guess maybe in the actual profile we might see that as a common special rule, but maybe because this is like the quick reference guide, that's why it's included. But again, surely there's going to be other forces that have this spear mastery rule.
That's a good point.
I like I guess the must-have. So, are we going to see benefits for having a shield? Like, do you get +1 to your defense, or is it just going to be a rounded profile? That would be an interesting thing that we can't really comment on yet. Sure. Are they going to simplify that? But I guess it's interesting that you have to have a shield now if you're just going to have a sword option. So that, again, interesting that we obviously don't have points values yet, so it's going to be interesting to see, are we going to have a base point, or is it going to be like, okay, the points don't really change depending on what you choose, because at the minute a bow and a shield are the same price, and I guess is a thrown spear then going to add that extra or not? So we'll see.
I think on that, again, we don't know, but they have said that they want to sort of stop producing profiles for models they don't actually produce. It's not really a choice you're taking all the time, but if you had some points over, it's not impossible to think that you would choose a banner, which I assume also is going to be an option in here somewhere, but isn't included in the box set. If you had some redundant points and you just wanted to use them up, it wouldn't be sort of unusual to use those extra points to have a bow and a shield on your banner bearer so that he can do an opportunistic bow shot when he needs to. And yeah, you don't get the defense bonus from the shield, but sometimes if you have been a little bit caught out and you just happen to have the points, it could be useful to allow your banner bearer to shield.
I guess reading this, you can't have the bow and the shield.
But
You can only either have a bow or a shield.
That's
so,
that's what I'm saying. We don't know whether these are like actual restrictions or if this is just what is in the start set. Because obviously you are going to be able to take a banner. There's no way Warriors of Rohan are going to lose the ability to have a banner. We see it in the films and stuff. They definitely will.
And unless that is they've broken that out and it becomes a specific profile model.
Maybe. I mean, we could see it become sort of like the drummer. Where you've got a point of fate or something. So yeah, that's another option, but we'll have to wait and see. One thing I want to add before we move on is I do think that like we're only actually by not having the points, we're basically only seeing half the profile here. I mean, like, imagine how significant it is if Warriors of Rohan move from, I think it's 6 points as a base model to 5.
Yeah, 6 points.
That would be massive. And with this move that they've done with elites, which go back and watch video 1 in this series, video 8, if you want to see the breakdown on elites. With what they've done there, I think it would be very cool to make elites properly elite, like with the movement on fight value. We see more of them at like fight 5, have some cool special rules, make them really actually elite, and then make standard warriors dirt cheap. I think that would be really cool. And also another question on this would be, are throwing spears going to remain 2 points? Because I think they're slightly overcosted because it's one or the other. I know we don't do fractional pointages, but I think the ideal points would be 1.5. I don't know how you balance that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe
they're going to go up though because you can use them for throwing on.
Well, would a compromise maybe be you get a shield and a throwing spear for 2 points, or is that too far?
Possibly, yeah. I guess if we go on what we see here, it's saying you must have one of the options, and you can only have a shield and a throwing spear. Maybe it's going to be 2 points for the throwing spear and the shield, 1 point just for the shield, 1 point for the bow.
But whether you're listening on Spotify or you're watching along on YouTube, both of those platforms have the ability to put comments. So go down in the comments, let us know what you think on this. Am I talking absolute madness there, dropping them down to 5 points, or do you see where I'm coming from?
I think the biggest hit that actually, when you look at it at the minute, say, because we don't know yet what's going to happen, but Riders of Rohan, obviously a big part of Rohan. At the minute, they're 14 points. But, so that's what...
I do think that they need to, it's not the sort of topic of this video, so we won't go into it. But in terms of Riders of Rohan versus Mounted Royal Guard, they need to look at the points there, because there is no point taking Warriors of Rohan at the moment in the vast majority of armies, unless you just want a bow presence. They do need to have a major rethink on that. But I think we need to move on. So as we move to another...
Well, I was just going to say on that, Sonny, if you are pointing in 20 points for a horse, Riders of Rohan...
They're not... No, I think 20 points for a horse, mate, is just for heroes. I can't see that being for warriors. Else there'd be no mounted warriors.
At a minute, it's across the board. It's 10 points for a horse, whether you're a hero or not.
That is a good point, but I would bet my house that it's not going to be 20 points for a non-hero.
Can we get that in writing?
No, mate. There's no way. Think about it. No one is going to pay 27 points for a 28 points for a Warrior of Rohan with bow and shield on horse. It would be unworkable.
That's baked in because it's not 10 points difference at the minute. It's only a 12-point difference.
Yeah. But anyway, we'll see. It is a good point that we don't know how much a horse is for warriors, but I can't see him going to that extreme. So let's move on. So we have our first hero of Rohan. Now, this is Haleth, who is the Crown Prince. He is intended to be the heir to the throne of Rohan. We can see there he's presented with his stat line in the exact same manner that we've seen with Elrond, but because this is from the starter set, we don't have any points. So let's quickly rattle through his profile. We've got 6-inch move, 6 fight value. Now that is the first Rohan hero we've ever seen that has a natural fight value of 6. So that is quite significant, but we do need to remember that they've stretched things out. I think fight value 6 is the new fight value 5, really, based on what we've seen so far. Shoot value 4, strength 4, defense 6. So he's got heavy armor, that's why he's got defense 6. 3 attacks, 3 wounds, courage 4, and intelligence 5. He's got 3 might, 2 will, and 1 fate. So a pretty hefty hitter here, but maybe goes down a little bit easier than Aemir. I think Aemir we could see with a very similar stat line, but with more fate in future. And yeah, we can also see that race, man, faction, that's all been defined. And yeah, let's quickly rattle through the rest of the profile, and then we can get Ash's thoughts on it. Heavy armor, hand weapon, armored horse. He's got challenge, resolve, and strike. Reconfirming that we're getting all of those things. He's got expert rider and horse lord. Those are both existing special rules for Rohan characters, aren't they, Ash?
Yes.
Yeah. And then we have defenders of Edoras. Whenever Halath is outnumbered in a combat, if he wins the duel roll, he may re-roll any failed wound rolls when making strikes. So yeah, I've given you the rundown there. Ash, what do you think? Like, I know we don't have the full picture yet, and we don't have points, but how would you feel creating a Rohan army and you've got this chap as an option?
Yeah, I think he's a pretty good option to have. I guess I noticed a few things where I guess he hasn't got. He's a bit like a Theoden in a way, because he's only got. I suppose he's got 3 wounds, but he
3
only
attacks.
does have 1. Yeah, he only has 1 fate. He has got the 3 might there, but also one thing I noticed is the defense is 6 with heavy armor, whereas when we looked at Elrond yesterday, he was a defense 7 with heavy armor. So are we going to see a difference now in the bonuses of having the heavy armor? Like maybe Elven armor is seen as more superior than Rohan armor.
Or is it taken on a case-by-case basis? Because what Ash is getting at there is that for both elves and men, their standard defense with no armor is a 3. If you're a hero, the convention has always been that goes up to a 4, and then it's 2 points for heavy armor, 1 point for a shield. That has been the convention all the way up to this edition, so that's what Ash is getting at there.
Yeah, are we going to see elves maybe higher as a base? Which I guess would make sense because they've probably got better craftsmen.
I think maybe it's taking characters more as like Elrond. Like Haleth is obviously a big name character, but Elrond is a legendary character in the lore. I mean, the guy is literally a major player in several eras of Middle Earth across thousands of years. Whereas Halath, we don't know, was probably knocking around a human. Almost certainly a human timescale. I don't want to say how old because I don't want to spoil things for people.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see as well. Like, he's on an armored horse at the minute. An armored horse is D6. So has he got the same
D5.
defense as his horse? Is it D5?
Yeah.
D5. Yeah, D5. Sorry, yeah. So he hasn't got that difference between him and his horse as much as you would normally. Not really anything else that stands out. I guess nitpicking. It says his movement is 6 inch, but he's on a horse. So, and I guess that could be quite confusing as a new player. That okay, but we can only move 6 when he's on a horse. But I guess as a quick view profile, I guess that's nitpicking. I guess, but heroic actions, challenge, resolve, strike. It's all think of any time you use challenge much.
It's all pretty standard, isn't it?
Yeah.
The one thing I would say is, like, I think this again, like, it's one of those special rules where it's just not worth having as like an individual thing. Just make it he gets to reroll failed to wound rolls and have it as a generic special rule. I don't think it's worth adding the complexity into the game. I mean, are we saying like I just don't think it adds that much character to remember. Oh, when he's outnumbered, it's
Yeah,
unnecessary complexity. I
it's
don't.
like Backstabbers, isn't it, with Grishnak, where he
Yeah,
gets the +1 to wound. It's
I mean that I would say adds like I don't know with the orcs because it in his legendary legion at least that he existed in. You've got something like that in terms of is it with the Uruks and the Orcs?
animosity.
Animosity. That's it. You've got that as sort of a theme, and I know they sort of did that after the fact, but it does work very well. I just think having these like tiny caveats added onto what is a generic rule. If you take out that outnumbered in combat, it's exactly the same as what Raz has got. Just make it the same as what Raz has got and make it a generic rule. Yeah.
Why does he only fight to defend the capital when he's outnumbered?
Yeah,
Surely he should be doing it the whole time.
I just think in this drive, like I really do think they should be moving towards let's have 5 pages of generic special rules. And there are going to be exceptions, like maybe Gandalf or maybe Elrond and things like that. But I don't think it's worth it on these guys like Halef, really. That is my personal opinion. Join in with the conversation and let us know if you like these. But as somebody that goes to tournaments, I just think that they have made very clear that they want this to be an easier game to pick up and play and be competitive. And I think that's something that they could have trimmed off. All right, that's enough on Halef, unless you've got something, Ash.
No, I think it's just a very generic.
Yeah, it is. It's just
line for a hero. Nothing
yeah,
too exciting.
And that's what I mean. That's a generic special rule as well, but they've just added on a caveat, and I don't think it's needed. I don't think it adds to the gameplay. All right. I mean, like, it's not like you're going to be like, oh, I want to make sure Haleth is always fighting 2 people, because you're always going to have him fighting 2 people unless you want to do a heroic combat and send him off into someone else. And if he's only fighting 1 person, God, he's a hero with 3 attacks, 3 might, and he's on a horse. It's not like he's going to have trouble killing that 1 person. Yeah,
I would have liked to have actually seen like a hand and a half or something for his axe, because it's quite a substantial axe. Yet it's just cast as a hand weapon.
That would have been
cool. There's not really any flavour in that.
I agree. That would have been cool. I think that could have like really separated him out from some of the other mounted heroes and made him less generic. But still, I think with this era, it's a cool profile. But we are basically looking at Airmere Light, aren't we here? Yeah. Okay. All right. On to Hammer, his brother. So he is the younger of the princes, another son of Helm Hammerhand. And his stat line is 6 movement, only fight value 5, which that is quite significant. We're going to have to see where that lands, because fight value 5 might not be what it was worth before. Shoot value 3, because we can very prominently see he does have a bow. Strength 4, he's got D6 like his brother, but only 2 attacks, 2 wounds. Courage 6, which is really... if I was saying Courage 6 in the old edition, I mean this is Courage 4 in the old edition. That's really low for a named character who's a prince. That is quite significant. Intelligence 5, which is quite good. Might 2, 3 will, and 2 fate. So he does have a few will there that he could defend himself from magical attacks or boost his courage, if that's still a mechanic. Heavy armor, hand weapon, bow, and horse. Heroic accuracy and heroic defense. And then he has warrior poet. Hammer may spend a will point at the start of any fight phase to use this ability. If he does, friendly Rohan models within 6 of Hammer may re-roll wound rolls of 1 when making strikes until the end of the turn. Again, I feel like this could just be a generic special rule. Call it something else like inspiration. Model may use a point of will to inspire people around them and reroll 1s to make strikes. I don't think there's any need for this to be an individual special rule again. Sharpshooter, is that a special rule we've seen before, Ash?
I'm just trying to find a profile that might have it. I guess if I just try and...
It could well be a new one.
Legolas.
But while Ash is looking at that, I'll talk a bit more about the profile. So we're seeing a consistency in heavy armor there, at least across the Rohan heroes. I mean, from the stat line he's got, and only being fight 5, he is on a horse, so he could do some lifting, but you're going to have to be careful with this guy. 2 fate and 2 wounds and d6 does give you a level of resiliency if the strength wounding chart has remained the same. But yeah, with a lack of heroic strike, you will have to be careful. But then, adding on to that, we do have 2 might there, and we've got heroic defense. Heroic defense, I do think, is a very underused heroic action, and if we're going to see more characters have it this edition, and every army maybe have an option of heroic defense, maybe people will become more familiar with it. I've certainly tried to work it into a few of my forces, because it can be really useful just to hold people up. There is a limit on it. If you get totally surrounded, they get the 6s, but definitely useful. Ash, you've got back from your research station. What do you have for us?
Yeah, no, sharpshooter is a new special rule.
Okay, cool.
So Legolas doesn't have in it, and there's nothing in the current rule book. But obviously, people can correct us in the comments. But I've not heard of it before.
So I mean that could be anything, couldn't it? It could be like reroll in the ways. It could be the new version of you can fire twice. Could be lots of things, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could be a bit like Deadly Shot that Legolas has, where he can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
where he can hit on a 2-up and he ignores all the in the ways.
Or where he can target the in the way, miss the in the ways out and stuff like that.
What do you think of the profile? Because as much as we said, sort of the last one was AMLI a bit generic. I do think this is, we can't accuse this of being generic. This is quite unique for Rohan, I think.
Yeah, definitely, and I think we've not really seen a Rohan hero that is sort of genred towards being a bow person. I think it's interesting that they've got a heroic accuracy and defense, and also the courage is really low.
It's very low.
Well,
it makes you
6+ now.
It makes me think whether something happens in the film.
Yeah,
to drive that. Yeah,
possibly. If you read his sort of blurb, it sounds like he's a bit more of the son who doesn't want to be a warrior, wants to be more of a poet and a painter than like a warrior. So that probably could explain that he's maybe not as courageous.
Don't we all?
Yeah. He's got heavy armor, so yeah, D6. So that sort of ties in with perhaps maybe, like we said, elves are going to be a bit more higher on the defense. We'll see when we get a bit more info.
I mean, Ash thinks it's elves. I think it's big characters getting a boost. So yeah,
we'll see. I guess
let us know.
When Helm,
what do you think?
Helm comes out, we can judge it a bit better because Helm's probably more on the region of Elrond.
Yeah.
But
yeah, before we close up, because we want to keep these concise, people get the information on these specific things. Do you think I'm being harsh on the generic special rules? I don't think it's worth the complexity of having to explain every single named character's special rule.
Yeah, I guess there's 2 sides of it, isn't there? It's got that thematicness that adds that additional bit of lore to a model. But yeah, I think in terms of gameplay, it would make more sense to just have like these generic special rules in a single place. Easier for people to remember. Less chance of you getting sort of what do we call it? Like gotcha moments in the game.
But I mean, like you can, because I'm not actually saying change the wording of the rule. I'm saying rather than having it warrior poet, have it as inspiration and then the exact same wording. And then you can give it to other people. And because I guarantee there will be somebody in this edition who has a very similar special rule. And what I'm saying is, like, the difference between Haleth and Raza, it's not worth that ever so slight difference to have the most boring discussion in the game of going, oh yeah, so-and-so's got this rule. And then they go, halfway through, oh yeah, that's exactly like so and so with this tagged on, and it would just be so much easier if you could just go say, Haleth has deadly, he gets to reroll wounds. Hammer has inspiration, and you just know straight
Yeah.
away.
I guess it needs to sort of be inspiration with the little X in the brackets, and then the X
Inspiration.
means obviously Rohan for him.
Well, you could have inspiration brackets will, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Because then that way, if you've got a character that you want to be able to do it 5 times, you give them 5 will. Still keeping the how generic it is. I do think it's a step forward that I would like to see in the game. I mean, like, you've got loads of named characters in 40k. I'm sorry to turn it to a different edition, but nobody accuses those characters of being generic, because they do have a long list of special generic rules, and they're just applied in combination with the stat line, and you can make it work with a bit of thinking.
Yeah.
All right, Ash, I'll let you have your closing thoughts on what we've seen from Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, Battle of Edoras, Rohan profiles. What are your thoughts? And we'll close this one up.
I think looking forward to them, but I think hopefully Helm has a bit more, when we see the Helm one, that he has a bit more sort of flavour to him than these sort of, I guess they're a bit vanilla in my eyes. There's, like, when you think about AMA, even he's got like that special rule that if Bearden or Dernhelm dies, then he turns into a bit of a nutter. So yeah, but looking forward to it, and it's going to be interesting to see how they match up against like Minas Tirith, like you said, or the elves, and to see whether that defense is a hero thing or is it a faction thing or a race thing. Are elves better than men, sort of thing. So I can't wait to see more profiles of factions that we already have and models that we already have, to see how they have changed in the new edition.
Yeah, we're not we're not going to get the full picture until we have everything. I mean, it sounds obvious, doesn't it? But we can't tell where things lie.
No, yeah. So we can theorise that I think there's different ways that the defence has changed. The fight skill obviously is going to be a big factor in, okay, how has that changed across the board? It looks like courage and stuff, they're sort of keeping it the same. Obviously, it's easier to read now, which is nice. It'll be interesting to see, like we say, with the special rules, how many of them are so similar that it may as well just be like have its own section within the special rules bit.
I mean, if I was to play devil's advocate against myself, the other thing they might be doing is keeping it fairly simple, because this is the starter set. But yeah, it is a bit. I'm excited for this, and I'm definitely excited to get hold of the models. And I think Haleth, if I'm going to run Rohan, will probably be my hero of choice out of the ones I've seen. But yeah, neither of them are making me think, oh yeah, I could do this, I could do that. You know, it's pretty middle of the road.
Yeah, none of them look OP.
Well, we have to see the points. If it's
50 points, then maybe.
if they give us Haleth on horse for 70 points, we'll be certainly saying it's overpowered. All right, that's all from me. Anything from yourself, Ash, and we'll say goodbye to these fine folks.
Just the usual, like and subscribe on your platform.
Yeah. Thanks for your continuing support. We'll be back tomorrow with another batch of leaked profiles. We'll be going through the Dunland. So I hope you join us for that. Cheers, everyone, and speak to you then.
Cheers, everyone.